right now.
Awesome. Okay. We are picking up where we left off last week, page 23, right at the bottom, the very last paragraph. So just a little recap. We are talking about the real alcoholics. So the first pages of this chapter talk about the allergy, and the next 20 pages are going to talk about the obsession of the mind, i.e., if you are a real alcoholic like me, of the hopeless variety, you and I have no mental defense against that first drink. We have an alcoholic mind that will compel us to have a drink against our will. If I stop, my mind doesn't stop. All right. Right at the bottom, the tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. And I just made a little note there that many of us come into these rooms shattered, broken, bruised, through the ringer, bent over double, because, you know, we will chase that obsession to drink like a normal person. We'll chase it to the gates of insanity. The fact, here's another fact. So in this chapter, there are 4 facts: the great fact, the tremendous fact, the fact, and I can't remember if there's a, nonetheless, there are 4 facts in this chapter. There is a solution, and we're going to look at the second one now. The fact, remember, we're talking about those who've come with hard-won experience, who've experienced the spiritual experience, and they're sober, and they're telling us these are the facts. Like, we've got to, like the doctor says right in the beginning of the book, you can believe absolutely anything these men may say. So the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower will becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. If you don't have, there are 2 alternatives for us, and we'll go find that now: to blot out our existence or accept spiritual help. There's no in between, there's no half measures. Let's go look where else it speaks about exactly this. Now, this little paragraph with all its squiggly writing is very important. I think we've spoken about this a couple of times. When the original printing of this book happened, for it to be printed in italics cost a lot of money. It was quite a manual process. So the decision to print this in italics meant that these guys and ladies were emphatic about what they're putting here in italics for us, i.e., sit up straight, take note of what they're saying here. Let's go to page 8 in Bill's story, just to reiterate what has been, and it's throughout the book, it's peppered throughout the book. I just highlighted 2 pages. So on page 8, the 3rd paragraph, talks here about fear sobered me for a bit. So we are without defense against that first drink. Not even fear is enough. You know, going into hospital, maybe from an overdose, going into hospital having half your stomach cut out because you're literally drinking clean ethyl alcohol. I don't know, I've seen that, I've experienced it in the rooms. It'll sober those people up. It sobered me up. You know, the social worker rocking up my door, it sobered me up for a bit, but it doesn't last long. And another reference that it makes is page 89. I just want to go over there very quickly. 89, the first paragraph, Rob. Thanks. So this is what I was talking about. If we don't have a spiritual solution between us and that drink, we have a mind that is going to compel us to pick it up. Whether we've got half a stomach that's been removed, whether we've got how many DUIs, we've got the parole officer knocking on our door, social workers, you name it, kids begging us, etc. But it says here on page 89, practical experience, again, another fact. These guys have hard-won experience. This is their truth. They've experienced it. Shows that nothing will ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. And the reason I'm hammering on this, I've had quite a bit of experience of this lately, where people are on a program and they're saying, hey, it doesn't work. And they're coming in and out, these souls. And I say to them, but did you ever sponsor? Did you went, they're like, yeah, well, I worked the steps. I said, all right, so where's your sponsees? How's it going? No, I never sponsored. No, I never got there. Well, honey pie, then you're working an 11-step program. And, that's not the deal here, because it tells me that you are ensured immunity from that first drink through intensive work with another alcoholic. Anyway, that's just where I'm at today. I am at sponsoring, and I'm at carrying this message, and I'm at helping other alcoholics who are still suffering in these rooms. That's our purpose. We were saved to serve. Things like saying, play the movie forward. I remember when I went to treatment, and thank God for treatment, because it helped me clear my head up, because, one of the slogans that they kept throwing at me, because I had children, they kept saying to me, like, just try and remember their faces. Just try and remember the look on your daughter's face when she left, when she packed her bags at the age of 9 and left your home. By nobody forcing her, she did that on her own. Because she knew, here's her alcoholic mama coming yet again. And at 9, this child had made up her mind and left. And they said, just play the movie forward. When you leave the treatment center, that's what you do. Well, fear sobered me up a bit, because I'm an alcoholic of the real hopeless variety. Okay, we're going to carry on. Page 24, the third paragraph. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. Now listen here, have you got a different color highlighter in your hand or nearby, or a different pen, or maybe just make a real bold circle? Look at this word, because this is what we're looking at now. These next 20 pages are going to highlight the obsession of the mind. And that was a big part of this disease that I did not understand. And now we're going to start highlighting it. If these thoughts, there's the word, very key word, okay? If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea. There's another word that references to our thinking, that this time we should handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. But you know what? That reminds me of a promise. There's a promise that comes true, because yes, us alcoholics, we keep putting our hands on the hot stove. I'll just go for one drink. I'm just going to have one. This time it'll be different. I'm going to drink like a lady this time, because you know what? I'm going to do light beer. I'm not going to drink the hardtack, I'll drink light beer tonight. 50 later, 4 days later, and I'm in Las Vegas, and somebody's taken my children to a foster care home. But you know what? I love doing this, because Bill does this as well. I just want to give us a little bit of hope. Let's go look at one of the promises that makes reference to us putting our hands on hot stoves and coming near flames all the time, regardless of the fact that we know it's going to burn us. Page 84. Right at the bottom of that page, there's such a stunning promise there. If tempted, where are we tempted? We're tempted from that one drink, right? We're just going to have one. We're just going to shoot up just for one. Just going to be one, and then I'm going to go home. Just one, and I'll go to the graduation. Just one, and I'll go fetch them from school. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. And that is one of the 10-step promises. So yes, we do keep going back to that hot flame, and we keep thinking maybe if I turn it a little lower, it won't burn me. But yeah, one of the promises is that we actually recoil from that drink, that sort of a drink. But for now, we're talking about the real alcoholic and that obsession of the mind. Page 24. Fourth paragraph. The alcoholic must say to himself in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time, so here's how. Right. So if I drink light beers on the weekend, or I'll only drink red wine in winter, or I'll drink white wine in the summer, all these different, because then it won't be that I won't drink that much. I won't drink much, or I won't go hanging out with that crew, or I'll eat a lot of cheese. I remember that was one of my favorite methods, was a lot of cheese before I went out. You know why? So that I could drink more. That's the reasoning, right? Yeah. It won't burn me this time, so here's how. Or, here we go, guys. Here's another one, another reference to our thinking. Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, for God's sakes, how did I ever get started again? Only to have, here it is, here's another one, only to have that thought supplanted, replaced by, oh, well, I'll just stop at the sixth drink. I've already had 5, I might as well have another one. Or, what's the use anyhow? Here's another reference to our thinking. How many have we had now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you think's our problem? Yep. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. And on that note, I just want to remind us of the 3 pertinent ideas in how it works. Because what is it? It's the A, B's, and C's. What does it say there? It says, A, I am alcoholic and I cannot manage my own life. B, that probably no human power could have relieved my alcoholism. What is a human power for a lot of us? The meetings. Just going to meetings, just go to meetings. I feel terrible today. I'll just go to a meeting. I'll just go to a meeting. We are beyond human aid. And I just want to stop here just for a second. For anybody who might be in their last month of sobriety today, we don't know who that is. And I pray to God it's no one here tonight. Or anybody who's really coming to that point now where they're finally just it's gonna happen. God's gonna just remove it. Ask yourself this question. Get your sponsee to ask themselves this question. Are you beyond? And unless locked up, may go, die, or permanently insane. How many times, those one of those one-liners out there, jails, institutions, and death. There it is. Unless locked up, jails, die, or go insane. That's our reality. Those are our alternatives. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. Great word there, legions, like armies of people, great number of people. And then let's just go look at where else it makes reference to us alcoholics being beyond human aid. Page 43, the 3rd paragraph. as to two of you men whose stories I have heard, there is no doubt in my mind. This is one of the doctors now talking to the alcoholics and saying to them, there's no doubt in my mind that you were 100% hopeless apart from divine help. There's only a supernatural power that can help us. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. And on that note, I also just want to say something. I celebrated a milestone a couple of days ago, and I really spent some time thinking about where I was this time 4 years ago, and who was around me, what state I was in, what I looked like, and for the last 4 years, I've said I stopped drinking on the 21st, whatever, 20th of, I can't remember. I stopped drinking. I've heard myself say that. And when I reflected on it now, the last couple of days, was really sitting just utter gratitude. So much gratitude. I just thought to myself, I had nothing to do with that day. I had nothing to do with that day. I just woke up, face down in my own vomit in the African sun, and I just knew it was done. It was gone. That loud voice that compelled me to pick up a drink had all of a sudden gone dead quiet. But the problem is 18 months later, it had made a big hole for a whole bunch of other voices. That's a story for another day. Page 25.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
I know you're on a roll today. We've never been through 2 pages in 1 hour since I met you. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Bill. Something came to mind as we're reading this. A lot of times we can get caught up in this book, and in the next chapter, since we always cross-reference the book, it talks about a whole bunch of different examples of thoughts or in thoughts. And that means the opposite of thoughts that take place before we drink. The one is the reservation that the guy's not going to drink because it's interfering with his business. But he doesn't have a reservation that one day he won't be shaky after drinking. He just says if he continued to drink, he could not be successful. And at that point in his life, business was more important than his drinking. So he sobered up, he went through detox, whatever it was. And it says he was a remarkable man. He stayed bone dry for 25 years. Then we have an example of a guy who lost a business through drinking, decided that he would at least go to work for the business. And then he's in a place where he's under the influence of alcohol, although he doesn't think so, and although he doesn't know it. And then we have Fred, the accountant firm, who thinks it would be a good idea to have a highball or a cocktail or whatever the hell he thought with dinner to celebrate his victory. But then there's a guy they describe, which, because I was in that condition for many times and quite often, of a jaywalker. And when we start talking around the obsession, when we start throwing around the word obsession, my mind knows what you're talking about. But I believe there are different levels of obsession, because guess what? If I'm obsessed, you're not breaking me free no matter what. And when it occurs, I'm drinking no matter what. And when we make the statement, when I heard you say it today, we are without defense against the first drink. I needed defense long before that, Nadia, because I'm without defense from the obsession taking place. See, that's my problem. I know that it's not a good idea for me. I'm not confused about the fact that the certain consequences that follow the first one, as you've heard me say. I've never started if I had $1.37 to my name. I'm not going to punish myself, because I know that's not going to even get me started, let alone finish the job. What I've discovered is whether I had 2,000 or 20,000, I never seemed to have quite enough to accomplish what I set out to accomplish, which is to go till the end of the world. But the fact of the matter is, there's different levels of this. And so sometimes what we do is we come in here and based on the fact that I need to grasp and develop, that I need to have the ability and the capacity to be honest, I want to fit in with people who are much further either in the grip of this disease because of their inability or because they haven't drank long enough. Is I want to fit in with you, and we throw this word obsession around very lightly. I've been in that position where no matter what is coming, I know it's not going to be good. And I'm actually writhing before I get the first one in me. In other words, I'm already drunk or high, as the case may be, before I even start. I can't do anything about that. What this program avails us is it puts us in a position where that can't take place. Because I'm not, like I said, I'm not confused about the fact of the first drink. And also when you started, and you know me, I'm not divisive, I just come across that way all the time. You started today at the tragic truth. And I was thinking about a paragraph and a half before that for those who didn't have the benefit of being here. What it says is once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow they will beat the game. So the obsession is I want to drink like other people. It's not the same obsession as I have to get a drink, regardless of whether I'm going to lose the rights of my daughter's life, lose the marriage, lose the job, violate drug court, violate my probation. It's on me and I can't get it out of me. It's like something's taken over my body. But then the other thing is alcohol's left such an indelible impression that I just can't imagine life without drinking. My mind wants to convince me that I can go back to former days, have that pleasant experience, because not everyone goes out knowing they're going to wreck their life. I always knew if I picked up the first one, I was going to be homeless in about 3 days. I traveled lightly and never bought any furniture. That was my solution for that, because I knew I was never going back to wherever it was I was leaving. And it just, like I said, they're talking about the excuses they have. Um, talking about the reasoning that we come up with. And like I said, I don't know the exact sentence I was looking for, or the tragic truth is, I wish we were pausing this, Rob, because right now it's going to look like I'm at a loss for words, and that never happens. Even if I have nothing to say, it doesn't stop me from running my mouth. But the paragraph that we talked to, that we started with today, is elaborating on the paragraph before when it's asking him why he took that first drink. And he'll give you 100 alibis or excuses that seem to make sense. Once in a while, he may tell the truth, and the truth is he has no more idea. And the happy day may not arrive. He may never arouse himself from the lethargy. He's down for the count. And you talk about, in this book, it talks about he is placed in a region, and I always used to think they were talking about the pickle and the cucumber theory, that once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it never goes back to becoming a cucumber. They're not talking about a physical transformation, that once I have the allergy, now I have it forever. They're talking about a region, and I believe it's spiritual, where there's no return through human aid. Now I'm in the grip of something, science, medicine, family, law, nothing but the grace of God can pull me out of. And it's strong words, but I didn't want to skip it. And maybe I was just trying to slow down because you're reading so fast, I didn't even know where we were in the book today.
Thanks, Bill. That's actually how we should have opened this, because you recapped that so beautifully. Thank you. So what the writers of this book do is they make us really hopeless, right? So he's just told us that our mind is dead set on recapturing the memories of past, drinking like normal people, and getting that drink in us, right? So like we're man down here. We say no chance. But now we get a huge dollop of hope. Page 25, second paragraph. Ta-da! There is a solution. Isn't that awesome? There's a whole paragraph. Oh, there's a whole chapter. There is a solution.
Nadia,
Almost.
as long as you got me started now, I've got the phenomenon of craving. Now I can't stop. Remember, I have the first edition here as Rob has one, I'm sure at his disposal, probably signed by Bill and Dr. Bob when Rob visited them. But remember, on the top of page 25, which in my book may be 39 or 40, it says, but for the grace of God leading up to this chapter, in the original first edition, it said there would have been 100 more convincing demonstrations. Now it says thousands, and one day they may be able to say hundreds of thousands or even millions. But remember, let's not lose our sensitivity to the fact that a miracle had been born and was being put into writing at the time this book came out, that they knew they were spared by the grace of God. Because guess what? If thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands receive this gift, it's not a big deal. But if you tell me there's no solution on the horizon, someone sent me a copy of this book, or I came across it by what my sponsor calls coincidence or good luck, but it's really grace. And I recognize that I have the symptoms that the people who wrote this book had. When you're talking about 100 people and I could go meet those 100, that's going to be a whole lot more significant than if there's 2 million of you worldwide and there's 300,000 Zoom meetings I can pop onto. Big deal. Want to say thanks for the information. We'll be back.
So long, thanks for the fish. So there is a solution. The next 4 sentences is the AA program. If you want to explain this to someone very quickly, all you need to do is read the next 4 sentences. Almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. I'm just going to stop right there, mid-sentence, mid-paragraph. That is the program. Those are the steps, 4 through to 9. The self-searching, that's inventory. The leveling of our pride, that's 5 through to 9. The confession of our shortcomings, that's 10, checking ourselves at 10. Which the process, but listen to how beautiful, this is such a stunning promise, which the process requires for its successful consummation. I went and Googled this, and that means complete, final, done. It's done. For this change to take a hold in us. But we saw that it really worked in others. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. You know, there's a lot of returning faces to this meeting on a Monday. And I'm very mindful and very aware of who's here, how you're looking. I'm not taking notes. I'm not, scoring anybody, but you're precious to me because we're doing this work together, and I watch everyone's faces, and you can't believe the beautiful, Bill, the way the skin starts to smooth, the smile that's just like a perma grin. I'm being serious. There's these miracles in front of me. And I can't wait. I'm literally like the road runner getting here on a Monday because I can't wait to see what more's happening here on these screens in front of these little squares in front of me. And there's a lot of that in the home group as well here, where we're face to face when we get to work with newcomers. Oh man, there just is no experience like that. When you work with someone and you see the life come back to their eyes. And then you see them sponsoring others. Oh man, that's the bonus round.
How do we successfully see it work in others if there's no 12-step work? You write these sentences really explain, I got to do some self-searching. I got to do inventory. I've got to level my pride. I've got to surrender to a power, and I might have a difficulty there. I've got to admit defeat. I've got to make amends. But how do I see it work in others if there are no others? So there has to be others. The example has to be set. And when therefore we were approached, am I getting ahead of you? And it's okay if I am, by those in whom the problem had been solved. So 12-step work right there is involved. The self-searching again in step 10, as in step 4. And then maybe the only thing, we're going to pick up the kit of spiritual tools. Maybe that's step 11. Prayer and meditation might be a couple of those tools. So it really comes from the surrender, like you said, the leveling of my pride. I'm whipped. I'm responsible for the whooping, and I can't stop the whooping. I'm going to take an inventory. I'm going to make things right. I'm going to confess my shorts and my shortcomings, that I'm selfish and self-centered. I'm going to have to depend on this power. But how do I know that that's available to me? I've been approached by others in whom the problem had been solved. It's really comprehensive. Thank you for pointing that out.
And thank you for reading one of my favorite lines. When we were therefore approached, we make the approach. Page 8 in Bill's story. He says, when approached, you don't have to go over there. It's fine. I'm just going to reiterate. We who carry a message of depth and weight, who are armed with the facts, we make the approach. We carry this message. We go to them. This, again, I just want us to be mindful of the kind of language that we're using in the meetings that we go to. In some meetings that I go to here at home, they're like, if you need a sponsor, put up your hand, or grab that phone number. There's a list of phone numbers on the table. You can grab one, call someone. Those are sponsors who've made themselves available. My book does not say that. I speak big book. I speak big book. I like big books, and I cannot lie. I want to make a song like that, by the way, before we kick off this meeting every time. My book doesn't say that. It says we make the approach. Okay, enough, Nadia. Stop it. You're going off on a tangent. All right, here we go. Here's a beautiful promise. You can highlight this and put your sparkle pens. We have found much of heaven and have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed.
And I want to say something here as well. Rob, I don't know if I sent you that talk of Jimmy Burwell last week or if you have heard it. But for anyone who's listening, there are a couple of YouTube videos of Jimmy Burwell. He came in contact with AA. He's talked about extensively in the literature. He's the one who actually is responsible for God as we understood him. He was the atheist. He came to AA. He defrocked the use of the word God. He told them, you can't make me believe. And they all said, you got to leave, Jimmy. This is a God-inspired program. And he opened up to the beginning and said, did you mean what you said or not? The only requirement. And all of a sudden, it was time for him to tell his story. And he got up and told his story. And there it is. And he did good. He satisfied them until he was pounded on the podium and said, there is no God. And what it says is the fellowship, the small group of alcoholics sober at the time, and it wasn't more than a couple dozen, if that many at that time, couldn't wait for him to drink because they couldn't stand his obstinate nature. And what happened is he eventually went on the road and he did pick up a drink And the way he describes it in the 12 and 12 is in this hotel he ended up collapsed in. He found a Gideon Bible. It says it was never discussed what he experienced, but he came to believe. Well, I say all that to say this. What he talked about is there were a lot of people that were having these hot flashes, which you just read. They were rocketed, and then they were unrocketed because they were either on the Apollo 1 or the Space Challenger, but both of them burned to the ground. And it's tempting and it's appealing to come to these big book meetings and learn all about AA and my disease and what I'm going to have to do. And if I'm not careful, my alcoholism will use this information, this knowledge, self-knowledge or big book knowledge. If I don't do what this book says, this book is no more than an inspirational book, which is one of the things we're going to read about on page 31 as some of the things we've tried to do to combat our alcoholism. It says we read inspirational books, how to win friends and influence people, or in my case, how to offend them in the masses. It doesn't matter. But all they are is inspirational books if they're not transformational. So I wonder, and I don't know how many weeks this has been going on. We're already in chapter 2, so I don't think we've been doing this for quite a year. But how many people that have been on this platform since we started, Nadia, that are no longer sober? We don't keep track, we don't count, we don't have a check-in, we don't have library cards that you sign out and update every week. It just happened a lot more than because this was just in the beginning, and the book says we grow in numbers and power. And I promise you that it's easier to stay sober when I know that the fellowship is 2 million strong than when I'm living in California or Canada. And most of you over in the Midwest or on the East Coast of the United States staying sober, there's not quite as much of a commitment or conviction, even though I know alcohol's killing me. It's the connection that we have, but it was painfully slow. And when you listen to this guy's talk, and he was not trying to be divisive or take away from the numbers that were boasted in this book, people were drinking after 90 days quite a bit. 6 of the people in the stories in the back of the first edition big book committed suicide. The first lady that came in that stopped them, obviously, from having the name 100 Men because she was a woman, ended up after a year either drinking herself to death or committing suicide. So there was a lot of stuff that took place. There was a lot of collateral damage while this was being made. And sometimes it's tempting to sit there and explain the allergy and the obsession and the phenomenon of craving and still remain barren, or run around worse than that because I feel good that I'm not drinking and I got an A in the class today because I said something that sounded prolific and Nadia smiled and gave me a heart. Is that I think I've been rocketed into a 4th dimension and all it was gas. You know what I mean? So you understand, getting relief from drinking and being recovered from alcoholism are light years apart. And too often we think that just running someone through the book with 12 days sober is the solution to alcoholism. And it is not. And lastly, I'll say this, and it's not to take away from the power of God. At step 10, it says the problem has been removed. If that were true to the way I'd like it to be removed, why do I got to continue, improve, and practice? There's a condition to the removal, because all I really have is a daily reprieve. And we were talking about this in another meeting. As long as they're recording me, what the hell? Maybe someone will read this one day and I can offend them and they never met me, and I'm okay with that too. What we celebrate too often in AA is the thing that divides us as a fellowship. If what I have is what I really have is a daily reprieve, why does it matter that you've got 40 years sober? You're not proving anything to me. All I know is I got 2 weeks sober and I must be nothing in this fellowship with you having your 40 years. How come no one ever asked me to come up and speak at the World Conference? Why do you give me a condition on the time sober? Do you not trust the process that we preach about in this big book? Because if I've been rocketed, I don't care if I'm 2 weeks, 2 years, or 20 years sober. If I become a channel and I'm being inspired or led by intuition, what comes out of me might be quite as valuable or more so than what comes out of you with your 40 years that you want to use as a badge of courage. I think we have humanized the grace of God into a time slot parameter, as if my length of time from my last drink is more important than me having a spiritual awakening that has revolutionized me from the inside out. That's the magic of AA, because guess what? When you get to be my age, 107, I might not make 40 years, but I'll tell you what, I love AA and I love God, and I know what happened in me is real. Thanks for letting me get off on my little, what my sponsor calls them. What's he call that? Up there on the platform? Soapbox. I was on a soapbox, but it's recorded. You can erase it later, Rob.
Thank God for AA and thank God for God, Bill. Thank you so much. What Bill's talking about is on page 85. Let's go. 85, second paragraph. In the middle of that second paragraph on page 85, what we, us guys, whether we're 40 years clean, sober, 26 weeks, 6 days, and what we really have is a daily reprieve. There's a death sentence, and today you're not getting it. You're not getting the chair. You're not getting the injection. Today you're a free man. If you keep your spiritual fitness up, we got muscles and they're a little bit flabby, a little bit unused, a little bit underdeveloped. And all we got to do is continue, practice, improve. Step 10, 11, and 12. And let's go back, page 25. And this is the most important fact of this chapter. The central fact. This also needs to be true for you. So I want you, as we're reading this, to ask yourself in your heart of hearts, is this true for you? The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. Just saying it makes me want to just jump right out of my seat.
Before you jump, one more thing, and then I promise I'll be quiet.
Okay, go.
Because you gotta substantiate a good opinion. And what I mean by that is this, and Rob, we know this well. Bill Wilson knew about the allergy to alcohol before Ebby came to him. Is that correct, Rob? Silkworth had told Bill the condition prior to the last drunk that Bill went on Armistice Day. He was off and running again. For the next 30 days, he got on a drunk he couldn't get off. In the history, what Bill was doing as a defense against the first drink, for my newcomer friends that are enthralled by this information, he was using the information that Dr. Silkworth had given him and his drunken debauchery of 35 or 8 years prior to that as a defense against the first drink. So he spends an hour and a half with his newfound friend on a bus or a trolley car, explaining what alcohol had done to him, the inner workings of his mind, how it destroyed everything, that his wife was working at a department store, and he told his story up till step one. And the guy thought he was brilliant to have this overwhelming monster living inside of him, and he's been able to put it in check now for 4 or 5 months. An hour later, someone passes a drink for free and says it's Veterans Day, it's Armistice Day. Here's one on the house, and all that information that he had used for 5 months and for the last 2 hours as a defense against the first drink, which is what we're getting here in this book, was easily put aside in the favor of a free drink. You can't pass up a free drink. He took a drink and he said all of a sudden his newfound friend that prior to that looked at him like he was a genius had a puzzled look on his face as if Bill was an idiot. And he said to him, Mister, after what you just told me alcohol did to your life, and yet you sat there and picked up a drink out of a position of sober, you must be crazy. And Bill looked at him, he said, I'm insane. My information won't stop me from putting the first drink inside of me, but God could and would if he were sought. That's why I think I really belabored that, because we're turning out a whole bunch of informed, educated alcoholics that are running around on the mountaintop being rocketed, pew, pew, pew. And when they land, when they crash just as pew, pew, pew or rocketed as they took off. That's why I say that. I caution that. I made that mistake too. The information, yes, it's good to fit the diagnosis and know what I have to do. But knowing what I have to do and doing it are two different animals.
Thanks, Bill. So we're going to reiterate exactly that now. We're going to have some fun with the English language. We're going to do two things. Yes, we do get rocketed. And you know, that actually means that we leave this planet and we go to the realm of the spirit. We get to go live there. But that comes with a warning. Because remember what I said at the last session, the idea that we're like normal people has to be smashed. Because if you're going to be living in the realm of the spirit, there's a lot of things we can't do like other people. Okay, so rocketed into the spirit, into the fourth dimension. What that also tells us is this work doesn't have to be done over a long period of time. This work can get done quickly. Okay, so just that little caveat there. And then the second thing I would like everybody to do is I'm going to read the central fact again, just because I love it so much. We're going to, it's so nice. We're going to do it twice, but I'm going to read it differently. Listen here. The central fact of my life, I'm going to read it for me now, because I just want to reiterate this amazing, beautiful miracle promise that we get in this program. The central fact of my life today is the absolute certainty that my Creator has entered into my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. Okay? Secondly, I'm going to read it again. The central fact of my life today is the absolute certainty that my Creator has entered into my heart and lives, our hearts and lives, our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. God lives and he's in our lives. I hope you got that. That's the magic right there. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. And that, I'm going to end on that. I just want a little anecdote. When I went to treatment, they had the promises of working nights, the 9th step, which is quite famous at a lot of meetings. They have it laminated on the card on the table. People seem to think those are the promises. There are only a handful of, I think, almost 250 promises in the book, plus some sneaky promises and some really bold ones, and that couple is threats. And in this treatment center, they broke up those 12 promises, and it was little cards that were, you know, you just pick them at random. And when I was in treatment, that first week, the card I picked almost every day was, God will do for what we will come to realize that God does for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I'd hear the others read their promises, and maybe it's just because I'd picked mine, it was my favorite promise, but to this date is still my favorite promise. Because things like being tolerant, kind, patient, you know, love and tolerance, that's the code. I can't do those things on my own power. I can't be kind to newcomers on my own power. And when I see myself smiling at people and holding my mother and holding my young child when she's ill and actually taking care of her, I watch myself do that because I can't on my own power. Of myself, I am nothing. The Father doeth all the works. God will do for me what I cannot do for myself. So when you're sitting here and there's this huge tall order of like, I've got to carry the message and I'll have to one day maybe speak and do a book. Don't worry. God's going to do it all for you. God's going to do it all for you. You just can't lie in bed all day long. There's some action. But yeah, it's just one of the most powerful promises in this program. I'm going to end it off there. Thank you.